Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Could you hear my voice?
Good.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, thank you very much. So thank you for coming to this international guest lectures. This is a session 2 for our Department of Environmental Engineering, and this is in collaboration with the Research Center for Infrastructure and Sustainable Environment. And for starting off our guest lecture today, so like we usually have in our webinar, the first one we would like to hear our national anthem, Indonesia Raya. So please, you can mute on all of your audio. And we'll continue with the hymn of ITS.
Sepuluh November 45 menolak
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for attending of this international guest lectures, the session 2 of our international guest lecture from Department of Environmental Engineering. This is the collaboration with Research Center for Infrastructure and Sustainable Environment, and today is the organizer is Laboratory of Solid and Hazardous Waste Management. And we will have 2 guest lectures today, and the Honorable of Kumara Sensei, and also Mas, I call it Mas because this is in Bahasa, we call it Mas Afif. Mas Afif is the candidate doctor from Hokkaido University. And also we have our head of department, Bapak Ari Diparesa, and also head of the laboratory of hazardous and solid waste management, Bapak Dr. Arseto. And we also have some lecturers that also attends, and also the head of laboratory. I saw that Ibu Dr. Baby Foyan is also in here, and also the Vice Deputy of Research Center for Infrastructure and Sustainable Environment. We have Ibu Dian in here. So welcome, and also some other friends that Dr. Isra and Dr. Hasimi that come from UKM. Okay. So welcome again to our international guest lecture. And without overdue, because we also will have a very good lectures today, and I think it's very interesting. We would like to invite our head of department, Bapak Dr. Ari Diparesa. Pak Ari.
Yes.
Yeah. So Pak Ari will be has a opening speech for these international guest lectures, and also officially open this activity. So Pak Ari, the time is yours.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrofil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Thank you. I personally would like to welcome Dr. Prema Kumara from ICS, Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, the name in which very familiar for me, and also Mr. Afif. Thank you for both of you who are willing to allocate your time to share your expertise with us today. I also would like to thank to all committee, especially from the either from the research center belongs to Bu Warma, and also the team. We also have Bu Dian here, Bu Baby Foyan, and other colleagues, as well as from the laboratory of solid waste management and hazardous waste, and also participants. There are almost more than 100 participants attending to this event, and this is very, very good, very good opportunity for students as well as other colleagues to discuss. And the most important thing is to not only hopefully we can collaborate together in the very near future, but also we could gain the shares that you would be, share with us today about the common practice, what happened in your particular area, especially in Japan, for example, or in other, or in any global scales. So therefore, I'm very happy to announce and to open this event officially. And thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, the head of Department of Environmental Engineering, Pak Ari Diparesa. And for this session, especially for the speakers today, for the guest lecture, I would like to invite Ibu Deki. Ibu Deki as a moderator for this activity. Yeah. Okay. So without overdue, I will be over to you. Thank you, Ibu Deki.
Thank you, Bu Wawa, for the introduction. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon to all of you. As introduced by Ms. Wawa before, my name is Deki Rizky Fiaradita from Laboratory of Solid Waste and Hazardous Waste Management, Department of Environmental Engineering, ITS. I will be the moderator for today's guest lecture. I would like to thank all of the participants for joining today's lecture. It is my pleasure to welcome you here this afternoon to our international guest lecture, session 2, with the topic Solid Waste Management, Enhancing Reduce, Reuse, Recycle, and Collection of Solid Waste. Today's guest lecture organized by Department of Environmental Engineering ITS in collaboration with Research Center for Infrastructure and Sustainable Environment ITS. There will be more than 100 participants joining us. There are from Environmental Engineering Department, other department, and other universities, also from the government. Thank you for joining us. We are so glad and excited to have our speakers here. Dr. Prema Kumara Jagat, the Deputy Director of IGES Center collaborating with UNEP on Environmental Technologies, or CCET, Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, IGES Japan, and Mr. Afif Faik Muhammad, Magister of Engineering, doctoral candidate of Hokkaido University, Japan. Also, he is one of our alumni. They will share about solid waste management topic, especially in enhancing reduce, reuse, recycle, and collection of solid waste. So we will have 2 sessions of presentation in today's guest lecture. First session is by Dr. Prema Kumara, and the second session is by Mr. Afif. In each session, there will be about 40 minutes for each speakers to share their topic, and after that, there will be a discussion session. If there is a question from the participants for our speakers, you can write the question in the chat room, and I will share it to the speakers during the discussion session, or you can use the raise hand feature during the discussion session. Now, without further ado, we will start with our first speaker. We are so glad to have Dr. Prema Kumara Jagat. Thank you for joining us today. Dr. Prema Kumara is a development planner specializing in participatory environmental planning and sustainable urban development. He holds a PhD in management development from the Nihon Fukushi University, Japan in 2006. Currently, he works as a senior researcher and deputy director of the IGES Center collaborating with UNEP on environmental technologies, or CCET, and provides technical support for developing countries in improving waste and resource management. So, Dr. Prema Kumara, time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Radhita, for your very nice introduction. So, let me share my PowerPoint. I hope you can hear me clearly, and also you can see my slide.
Yes, it can.
Great. So thank you again. And yes, my name is Kumara. So it's a long name, Prema Kumara Jagatika Lagamara Lalage. So I'm from Sri Lanka. So Sri Lankan have longest names in Asia. So call me Kumara. So actually I attached to the IGS. It's a research institute in Japan. So within IGS, there were different research units. So I belong to the IGS UNEP Collaboration Center for Environmental Technology. So we call CCET. So it's mostly focused on the sustainable waste management and resource efficiency subject in Asia and the Pacific. So my team is mostly work in 3 research areas. So we work with the governments and the national and the local to develop policy regulations related to the sustainable waste and the resource management. And also we work in teaching and the capacity building for the different stakeholders in partnership with the universities and other research institutes. And we also work in developing, we call knowledge products and the networking. We found this is very important when we going to make some kind of a policy changes happening at the ground, at the both local and national and regional level. So in these three project areas, so we are mostly working in our activities in Asia and the Pacific. So currently, actually, we are doing a lot of work in both South Asia and Southeast Asia. So as you can see, in South Asia, we are very strong in working in India, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Bhutan, and also Southeast Asia. We are working more on Myanmar, Cambodia, Indonesia, and we also now working in Vietnam and the Philippines. So most of our work is we work in partnership with the local research institute. So in our work in Indonesia, we are very grateful to work with ITCS and Dr. Varma and her team is in this work. And before that, we work with the others. So then let me go to today my presentation. So I want to talk not directly the 3R and the collection, but I thought my lecture is focused on the addressing waste at the source rather than at the end of the pipe. So it's mean I think when you promote 3R, it is very important to look at waste at the very source as a resource rather than looking at the waste. So I will briefly give introduction why this subject is important. I think these 3R and the resource efficiency. And then I will share some of our case studies, what we work with other countries. So in the recent past, we did a research study on this subject. So I will share some key findings from this study. So then I will allow any discussion after that. So I want to start my discussion from this figure because I think this is very important for all of us. This is the recent ESCAPE publication on the progress on the SDG in Asia Pacific. So if you see my left side chart, it shows the progress. We can clearly see no SDG targets can be achieved when we compare to the 2015 to 2020. So all we are in somewhere in the middle. But if it is come to the sustainable consumption and production, what we are going to talk, it is very important today discussion. So it is one of the least progress areas in the region. So, and here in the details they mentioned like some targets they said can be achievable target, but it still will not achieve. But some are reverse trend, especially sustainable use of natural resources, sustainable tourism monitoring, and the most of indicators don't have data. I think that is very important for our discussion today also, because when it's come to the waste management and the research, so we found the reliable data within the local governments or the national governments are most of the time very weak. That is most of our researchers' responsibility, developing data and collecting data and then making this available for everybody to use for this work. So here we found that it is very important to creating indicators and developing data for this region. And then I want to share another two work where IGS also contributed in this study. So one is UNEP Global Waste Management Outlook, and Another one is the World Bank waste-wise water waste. I think most of you have already read these books, but what I'm interested to see is our region, Asia Pacific, where we are IGS and my team is working, is waste management is still neglected and need lot of priority and lot of actions to improve. So at the same time, we are the region is generating more waste, going to be generate more waste, and our cities they're going to be more challenged in managing waste in the next 10-15 years. So that's something I feel we have as a waste management researchers, waste management professionals. So we have huge responsibility and also huge work in future. So maybe young researchers, this is good to do more research and more involve this field, because it's going to be more important for the next 10-15 years in this region. So what we looking at, we found like when looking at the developed countries, I'm living in Japan, so I found the history of waste management. So they going for some kind of a process, like a phases. So they started dumping waste in somewhere, and then they started to improve the waste treatment first, and then they started the resource management. So and resource efficiency. So do we need to, we are now thinking, do we need the developing countries to follow the same steps, like first improve the waste treatment and then think about the waste resource management, or whether we decouple these impacts, and we start from thinking about the resource management first rather than the treatment. So that's, I think, my interest for today's discussion, because do we need to follow the similar model of what the developed countries has followed, or do we developing countries based on their resources, lack of financial situation? So can we think about the resource perspective than the treatment perspective? So that's important points. And then, of course, as I mentioned, so we found most of our cities facing a lot of challenges going to be handled waste, either legislative or either financing, technologies, and stakeholder participation, and the level of service provision and management skill activities. So all of these challenges, some are similar to city, some are specific to the local situation, but we found that most of the cities are facing these challenges when they're going to handle the waste management. So that's one way we found it is very important, because that's that makes cities to take their own activities, because that's my next one, that because based on the local situation, local challenges, local resources, how each city or how each country can manage their waste is something different from so they had to be look at their own models. So for that, we found that the planning is very important rather than waste management, like as a separate or some kind of isolated activity. So it should be integrated with the overall city planning activities. So that's very important for the improvement of the waste management. So when doing this, we found like there is two things is very important. One is institutional level, one is individual level. So these two capacities are very important when we're looking at this integrated or sustainable waste management planning at the city level. So institutional level, so we need to address the early challenges that I mentioned. So policies, institution, financial, and the technologies. But at the same time, we found very important individual capacities in different stakeholders, their capacity, including the citizens, their awareness, knowledge, and the norms should be changed in managing the waste in proper manner. So it's make more impact, and we know that if we do this properly, so we can achieve many benefit in both in the what we discuss in this SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and at the same time climate change impact. So there are a lot of research have already proved that it can be achieved. So our research also, we always finding these results. So then let me go to the sharing with you the finding of our study, because this is actually we did in 2019 to 2021. So we studied four cities and look at how we select these cities as model cities in each country. So and see how the cities had worked on developing their waste management systems and what kind of achievement they achieved in their waste management system. So actually one is Surabaya. Maybe you know better than me, but we select two cities in Philippines, Cebu and San Carlos, and Surabaya, Indonesia, and another one is Seoul from South Korea. So actually we work with the teams in each city, universities, and doing these studies and collecting the data. What we try to do is we want to understand this study. We try to understand how these cities successfully introduce waste management systems to reduce the waste management at source rather than focus on the typical waste management system like collection and transport to the landfill, or improve the collection system. So without looking at that typical waste management system, we try to look at how they reduce waste go to the landfill from the 3R. So in today meeting, you call it 3R from the 3R activities. So we found different cities achieve different level of targets. So Cebu, we found they from only within 2 years, that time that the period that they have implement these project activities, so they can achieve 30%. And San Carlos, 60% of waste reduction they achieved from the 2005 to 2018. And also we saw Surabaya is also showing some results, 37% of waste reduction during 2005 to 2011. So, and the Seoul, 68% in during that project period. So all cities we found achieved quite a strong number of waste reduction targets through their waste management systems integrating. So what they did actually, the most of all cities actually have their own waste management system and also the waste management activities, but most of them have some kind of a common understanding. So they started considering waste reduction targets, waste separation and prevention at source, and decentralized waste management system, and the recycling, especially the organic waste, composting, reverting go to the landfill, and some kind of a polluter pay principles, and integration of the informal and the small and medium enterprise, and the public education, and some local legislation. So mostly they try to follow this waste hierarchy, as you say, like a 3R. We found more than 3R, so they have another R. So they started recovery, and also now we can found the reject and some other policies also including. So then what what we learned from, I want to discuss only 4 lessons from these 4 cities. It's quite interesting. So the lesson 1, actually what we see that all of them are try to develop kind of a vision or the plan for each city to adapt to their own waste management system based on their local needs and based on their key stakeholders. So that's very important. What we found, like the cities, as I mentioned, so the resources, their capacities are different from one city to one city. So they had to be started with their own capacities, own waste management systems, rather than just copy from the other cities and try to do the same thing in instant. They can learn from each other, but they had to adapt them into their local situations. So in that sense, we found all cities have some kind of the plan for waste management. So as is in Philippine cases, so they have 10-year waste management plans. So actually this is coming from the national level. So they ask the cities to develop a city waste management plans. So each city want to develop their own city waste management plans. So we found that the Cebu and San Carlos are 2 cities that started developing the city waste management plan based on the national plans in the early stage of the cities. So what they done is they did some with very specific waste reduction targets, and also mandatory waste segregation at source, and some vision in applying the community-based waste management activities. So you can see, and Surabaya also, we found that time you have like a 5-year waste management plan with mandate to the community-based organizations. But I know now that Indonesia have Jaksrada, and every city need to make their own waste management plans. I think this is very important for the cities to manage plans. And also in Seoul, also we saw that they developed some act to promote the saving recycling resources at the local level. But what we found another challenge when this city is going to make their own waste management plans, the data and understanding the current the present waste management scenario, because they need to understand where they are at the moment. So for that they need to understand the proper waste management system, particularly waste generation, what type of waste generation, and the waste characteristics. So we found most cities don't have such a information available with them. Some cities they hired the local university or the local expert to support the city to do such studies for them, and then based on that data they started planning their waste management systems, and then making targets based on that. I think that it's very important. They had to start from the evaluating or measuring the existing waste management system in the city. So that should be, I feel, the important part of the research. Local universities to work with the cities and helping them in doing these research activities to understand the current waste management systems. So what then we found, like this is actually sorry for that the small word. I want to show this diagram because we made this for each city. So this is the city we made for the San Carlos. So how they did their waste management analysis, and then they changed to that, because they did this study in 2005, and that time actually the before 2005 their waste management systems is very conventional or traditional waste management system. So where they collect they collect part of the city waste and just put it into the disposal site. But after 2005, they, with their waste management plan, so they localize waste collection system, integrate in the barangays. I think this is something very similar Surabaya is doing. The primary waste collection system is given to the responsibility of the local communities to collect. And then the secondary waste collection is a responsibility of the city government. So changing from that city collect and dump system to that community or the decentralized collection systems, we found that there are waste collection coverage before from 30% to from 2017, it's more than 100, like 100% waste collection coverage. And at the same time, it's not increased their waste collection systems. It's helped them to reduce illegal dumping or illegal burning at the community level, because this is also one of the challenge the Sankalo city was faced, because due to lack of waste collection systems before 2005, the most of community people start like did open burning, like a burning their waste at their household or at the community level, so they can stop. And then the waste separation also they change, because early before their plants there were no waste separation at source. They collect all the waste together, but after the new waste collection systems, so they educate people to separate waste into the three systems, like organic waste, recyclable, and other waste. So that's make them to increase their bio-organic waste for composting and the recycle for the recyclable materials. And as a result, the people started to understand the waste, and then the 3R activities are promoted, and city was successful in maintaining the waste per capita generation at the same in the last 10 years, even though city economic condition has increased. So treatment also, before the plan, the city just have open landfill and very informal sector involvement in the waste recycling. But within the plan, so city came up with improve the final disposal site. So they stop open disposal and open burning, and then they converted it into the sanitary landfill. At the same time, they develop material recovery facilities at the landfill site, so then they can do more recycling, and also promoted composting activities in the community level. At the same time, at the central facility at the landfill site. So that kind of a changes in the treatment, so help them to increase volume of material recovery from the and reduce waste to be landfill by 60%. And also that's helped to formalize the informal sector and the private sector involvement in the recycling activities, and stop the dump site and change into the green space, because their former landfill site was converted into the sanitary landfill and the green space. So that's kind of a change we found in the each city. So there are some the different changes, but we in our study we try to understand how they change the waste management system with these waste management plans, and what impact they achieved from that activities. So then the second lesson what we learned is the how to manage the bio waste or organic waste. I think this is very important in most of the developing countries. We found all our cities because as we know that even in the Surabaya, so organic waste is the largest component in our waste. So if we can properly manage organic waste, we can manage more than 50% of waste properly. So that's something that we found that each cities had done some work, even especially in Surabaya, Cebu, San Carlos, all cities we found taking some initiative to introduce decentralized composting facilities and home composting and home gardening activities at the city level. And in Seoul, we found that they have a lot of further changes because they want to promote very specific regulations and also promote the organic waste management more properly. So they special biodegradable bag and the compulsory food waste collection, and they was banned dumping the landfill. So they take quite strict regulations to promote organic waste into recycle, like organic waste into composting and the biogas system. So for that, they develop a lot of regulations and the incentives for the users, household, to encouraging them to not just dump the organic waste, but it's used for separately for recycling. And but at the same time, we found there were a lot of challenges in all our cities making this composting, because getting the quality waste separation at source, and also making compost at community level, capacity of the compost facilitators, and then also the marketing of the compost. All these are have some challenges, but at the same time, they find some kind of own initiatives how to use compost for the urban farming, and also for the urban greening or landscaping of the cities, how cities supporting these community compost facilities and providing some incentives to the workers, and allocating land for making compost facilities. So that kind of supportive schemes and the marketing schemes have innovative way that the cities try to find to make the composting. But at the same time, in our cities, in these cities, we didn't have some kind of a larger treatment facilities like an incinerator or something. But that is what we want to study in some other cities, to know that how if they move from these composting kind of activities, or the making more incinerator facilities. So then whether it's enhance the waste separation and promoting composting activities, or whether it's don't need to do that kind of a thing. So it's all go to the incinerator facility. So that kind of studies, I think we would like to look at, because in these four cities, we didn't have such a contrast between that, because that's why all cities want to reduce organic waste, promoting compost and biogas. That's make them more benefit to control their landfill reduction. And then the third one is we found very important activity that the most cities have done is involving the public for environmental education, because we found this is very important when looking at these 3R and community or decentralized waste management systems. So all cities have quite comprehensive waste management and public education, environmental awareness program. So we found in the San Carlos, what we learned from this experience, these education programs, not like a short-term activities, not like events. It should be a very long-term programs with very comprehensive planning how to do that to educate people. So as you can see in the San Carlos, we found that they took more than 4 years to making people to make people aware about these 3R and new waste management systems. They started from awareness program, information campaign in urban areas, so then develop materials, and then they started expanding the pilot activities to the whole communities and to the both urban and rural areas, and then they integrated them with the monitoring and campaigns, and then they develop more systematic awareness programs. So it shows us that some cities we found they have a challenge in environmental program because they don't do such a like a holistic planning of environmental education activities. So it needs such a comprehensive planning, how you moving from the designing the pilot projects and then expand it to the whole city. And at the same time, we found the awareness itself is not enough. So it's need to combine with the incentives and the award systems to encourage community to more involved in these programs. Especially we found like in Seoul, they have like a financial incentives, like their waste collection system is based on the volume-based waste management fee system, where the people had to pay how much amount of waste based on their waste volume. So it's make people, if you throw much, so then you had to pay more. So if you want to pay less, so then you had to separate your waste and reduce the waste going to the collection. But at the same time, we found in the Cebu, they had a system, they call it is the cash from trash program, and where the people separate waste and give to the recycling or the composting activities, they can get some incentives from involved in these activities. And in your case, in Indonesia, you have waste bank system, something similar, where the people can handle like incentives from the giving waste as a resource. And also we found some award systems in Cebu, San Carlos, and Surabaya, like a green and clean communities. So this is more at the city level and also the national level. So promoting the communities to involve more on these 3R activities and community education activities. And also we found a very strict enforcement and monitoring mechanisms are also used by cities, especially in Philippine cities. They call no separation, no collection system. So if you not separate the waste collectors, not collect the garbage from your household. So at the same time, in the Seoul, we saw some recycling stations were regularly monitored by the residents to prevent in dumping of mixed waste. So that kind of voluntarily enforcement system and the regulatory enforcement systems are used by the cities. So we found it is very important to have such a combine of awareness with incentive and enforcement is important for the proper environmental awareness program at the city to promote 3R activities. And then the last lessons what we learned from these case studies is the governance aspects, because it is very interesting to see how the cities need to be integrate the waste management in both the vertical and also horizontal, because this is also from the San Carlos what we want to show. The early the blue one is the original, like a former existing operational systems, and the not yellow brown one is the newly stabilized after the new waste management system. So they have a mayor is the city head and city committee, and within the committee there are one committee called Committee on Environment. So that is the mostly taking decisions on the environmental decisions. So waste management also part of that committee. But the waste management at the higher level mostly happen in the city health office and the city environmental engineering department. But after this new waste management plans, so they created center for environmental management and the new office for the waste management. So, and then that department was created integrated waste management unit control division within the other environmental divisions. So that division has a subdivisions for the waste management. So this make creating new governance or new management system within the city to implement the waste management. And that team also have different like environmental education and pollution control, waste collection, and they look at in different aspect of the waste management to the implementation. At the same time, they had the separate coordination committee, so where the waste management can interlink with other departments and the other management systems to discuss this waste management issue and the progress with the other departments to get their support, and because waste management sometimes cannot only operate within as a waste management. So also we found we need to develop a good partnership with different stakeholders, because waste management is happening in different players, especially it's come to the waste collection, transport, recycling. So we need all these to be involved in the waste management. So we found all our case study cities give priority to work these people and these stakeholders to work together and make some collaboration in these activities. So creating that, so the city has different, cities take different aspects. So especially to creating new management systems and creating new public consultation systems to get the views from the public, and creating new regulations to involve private sector, and creating new regulations to involve informal sector to their waste management system. So most of cities found different actions for that activities. So I think I will stop somewhere here, because these case studies have already published as a case studies, and also we published the findings as a journal papers, and shared with other international networks. So if you go to want to read these case studies more, so please go to our website, or you can search, so that can be find from the other journals. So I will stop here and would like to have any discussions about these points. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kumara, for your sharing about how to enhance reduce reverse cycle of solid waste and some of case studies in some countries. If you have any question, you can write in the chat box, and we will discuss it in the discussion session, or you can raise your hand during the discussion session. But now we will move to the second speaker. We are so excited here to have Mr. Afif Faik Muhammad, Magister of Engineering. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Afif. Mr. Afif is one of our alumni. He has graduated from Environmental Engineering Department, ITS, at 2015, and currently he is a doctoral candidate of Hokkaido University, Japan. His work focuses in the solid waste management research. Some of the achievement in 2017, he achieved a Max Scholarship Awardee as research students program, and also in 2019, he also received a Max Scholarship Awardee from Doctoral Degree Extension Program. So without further ado, Mr. Afif, time is yours.
May I start? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. To the honored Dr. Kumara and moderator, all my lecturers and friends, and all the participants, thank you for joining the talks. Yes, my name is Afaik Muhammad from the Laboratory of Sustainable Material Cycle Systems of Hokkaido University. I will share a little bit of my knowledge here about the solid waste transportation systems of Japan and Indonesia. So, yeah, once again, my name is Afif. Well, most of the people call me Afif. I'm 28. I'm currently studying in Hokkaido University in Sapporo, Japan, which is like 1.5 to 2 hours flight from Tokyo, or equal to Jakarta to Bali flight. I'm working in the Laboratory of Sustainable Material Cycle Systems under the supervision of Professor Kazuo Ishii, with the focus on the sustainable material cycle systems, biorecycling, waste management, engineering, and many others. And the pictures below are the from each season in Hokkaido Prefecture. And what I want to mention here is that the winter here is quite long. It can start from, well, basically from December to March, but the snow will be there until April. Even it's sometimes it still snows on April. And the temperature ranges from like maximum 30 degrees Celsius in summer to minus around 15 degrees Celsius in winter in Sapporo, not in Hokkaido. So yes, the winter is long, so somehow we gotta survive and enjoy the short days, and it's mostly dark and cloudy, and everything is monochrome, like black and white, because the leaves are gone. So I tried the winter sport, and believe it or not, this is me. I'm on the top of the mountain here, snowboarding, and you can see on the background here is the Pacific Ocean. It was a nice day. Yes, before we start further, I'm going to give a short overview of the history of waste management in Japan. So in the post-war and modernization era, the situation is quite far from how you know Japan these days. The treatment systems were not organized at the time. There were illegal dumpings here and there, and also because of the collections is conducted like openly with a pushcart, so the diseases are spread like easily. To this problem, the national government and also the prefectural government, they collaborate. They decide to provide both the financial and the technical support. And they also ask the residents to cooperate with the system. And they introduce the treatment systems, say it's the landfilling. Either it can be landfilling, it can be it can be the resource recycling center or the incinerator. But at the time, there was no exact standards on how things should be. So this is the waste collection at the moment. We can see here, the residents are dumping their household waste to the pushcart, and the pushcarts are being taken to, which seems to be the transfer station at the moment. And this is the waste bin from household, and they're loading it to the trucks here, which is quite similar to what we have in Indonesia. And it followed by the industrialization and the economic growth, which happens around 60s to 70s. And this with this growth of factories here and there, also the usage of plastic materials are rising at the moment. So the industrial pollution and the plastics waste were the main issue at the time. And of course, maybe some of you know the famous Minamata disease and Itai disease was happened during this time. So the government, they decide to separate the municipal and the industrial waste from, the management of these two supposed to be separated. And they are starting to put more concern on the living environment to protect the residents especially. And here the technical experts and the architectural standards or the system standards for the waste management facilities are being focused on in order to make sure that the facilities or the pollutions or the output are as how it's supposed to be. And then in the over time, in 80s to 90s, the landfill are starting to have a shortage of area. So they decide to establish this sound material cycle society in Japan. And they lead this program by promoting the source separation, of course, with the residents. Therefore, they start by handing the flyers or guidebooks. And this also includes the one with foreign languages, especially in English, for people, for those who, like foreign residents in Japan. And okay, so this is the source separation and discharge of Japan. And maybe some of you know, or maybe watch this video of Kamikatsu town in Japan. So it's a small town with 1,500 populations. And what makes it really impressive is that they start to initiate the zero waste, to establish the zero waste at 2003. And they have 13 main categories of source separation. And this is massive. And they elaborate these 13 main categories into 47 items, as we can see from this below. It's very massive. It's confusing, of course. But somehow they manage to do it slowly by education, by hearing, and many other actions. And somehow they achieve around 80% of recycling. But actually, that's not how it's generally happened in Japan. So let's take another example from the Sapporo city of Hokkaido prefecture. So in in Sapporo city, we only have seven main categories, which you can see here, and three of them are paid. You have to pay. They use the pay as you throw system. So the more you generate the waste, the more you have to pay, because especially these two, the burnable and non-burnable, they require this designated or special plastic bags for you to discharge. Otherwise, they will not collect it. So, and the other part is the bulky waste. So for bulky waste, you have to contact this number, the recycling center, the collection center. And for example, you're going to throw a table here, and you have to tell them you're going to discharge a table which is big and cannot be put inside the bag here. So for example, they say you have to pay like 500, therefore you have to buy the 500. Yeah.
Ini nanti sudah ditanya.
Yes. The 500 stickers, and you have to put it on the table, and you have to, and then before the collection day, you can discharge. You can put it on the curbside, like for example, in front of your living place. And the rest of the items, the rest of 4 of them, are actually free, but still you have to put it in the either transparent or semi-transparent bag. And you have to separate it. Of course, you have to separate it by the categories here. And you have to discharge it like on the designated day. It might get confusing because, for example, this is container, and this is also container, and this is also container. Like most of they separate it based on the materials and how can they be utilized after, how can they be recycled after. For example, like the PET bottles, you have to separate the cap and also the label, and it goes to this part, but the bottles itself, it stays in this part, in these categories. So yes, so this is the bags that I mentioned previously, the designated paid bag. It comes in Sapporo City. It comes with 4 sizes, 5 to 40 liters, and yeah, the more you generate the waste, the more you have to pay, of course. And this is the bulky waste stickers for the bulky waste. You can get it. I mean, like you can get it in the convenience store or anywhere, but yeah, it's quite expensive. And this is the collection schedule. So as we can see here, the burnable, I'm sorry, it's in Japanese, but the yellow one, the burnable, it only comes 2 times a week. And the plastics, the plastic packaging, and the PET bottles, the glass bottles, and the container for aluminum cans container, they are only collected once a week. For the paper, miscellaneous paper, and garden wastes, and the non-burnables, they are only like once. Sorry. For the miscellaneous paper, it's like twice a month, and the non-burnable and the garden waste only once a month. And there are no collections on Sunday or Saturday. So you gotta prepare. You gotta prepare on what you're going to discard. And of course, you have to wait until the designated time for you to discard this specific waste. And on the right side here, this is the waste collection points. It can be a private. I mean, private here is like only from one building, one, for example, apartment building, or under one management building. Or it can be a communal, for example, couple buildings, apartment buildings, and they have one communal collection points. Sometimes for mansion or apartments, they have the indoor collection point, because maybe it's quite hard to see, but I can zoom it here. We don't have stray cats or scavengers, waste pickers in Sapporo, at least. But the main problem here is the crowds, which is quite as big as a chicken in Indonesia, and their beak is big, so they can rip off the plastic bags if it's not inside. That's why we have this protection for the waste itself, and of course that's why they put it inside the apartment. And this is the bulky waste, how you discharge the bulky waste. You have to just put it on the curbside or in front of your house before the designated day. Mostly in Sapporo it's on Wednesday. So like before Wednesday, people are putting their stuff outside their house like this one. While for the business waste, for example, my university, they have different collection points, collection station. And this is for the wastes. And also, yes, they have different types of segregation. They have different types of separation. And this is for the bulky waste. So, well, the way I supposed to separate my waste at home and the way I supposed to separate my waste at the university is different. Yes, different. I know. Okay, let's compare to how it was in Indonesia. So by law, actually, Indonesian, we are obliged to reduce and manage the household waste. And it includes to separate the waste based on the types or amount and or the characteristics. But most of the time, majority of the discharge waste in Indonesia are mixed or commingled. As we can see here, plastics, kitchen waste, food waste, and everything's like in one bag. And one of the reason of why people are doing this is because the collection, we only have one collection system. And even, for example, even if we separate the waste at home and we don't bring it, for example, we don't bring it to the waste banks, but we just separate and we want to give it to the waste collector. But they only have one cart, they only have one collection time, one collection system. So everything will be mixed again inside the collection cart. So they thought it's useless to do so. We have this push cart, and sometimes they connect it to the motorcycle to make it easier to reach more coverage area. And sometimes we have the 3 cycles. So let's take an example from Surabaya City in the East Java province. So arguably, Surabaya is the home to the first waste bank in Indonesia, rooted back to 2006, all the way. And the latest research shows that there are 755 waste banks, the units and the central waste banks in total. And they cover, in Surabaya City, they cover 35,000 customers, which if the customers represent one household, it only covers around 4% of the total households in Surabaya. And they only reach the 1 ton per day of recovery. This is how it looks like, the Bank Sampah Induk Surabaya, or the Surabaya Central Waste Banks. But the impressive thing is they offer for you to buy your waste, your recyclable wastes, up to around 56 items. And it's actually quite impressive. And then we come to the waste transportation. Let's start with the Indonesia first this time. So the transportation, what it classified as transportation, waste transportation in Indonesia, is the transportation from the transfer station to the landfill. Actually, for the public facilities which generate high enough amount of waste, they need to transfer their waste directly from the facility to the landfill. But mostly, the transportation is happened from the transfer station to the landfill. They use 3 types of trucks and use both of the transportation system, the hauled container system and stationary system. So the first one, the dump truck, this is for incidental waste. For example, the curbside tree cuttings and also the river cleaning. So it's incidentals. And the arm rolls, I guess this is the major one. So it can be detached, the container, the regular metal container, it can be detached and placed on the transfer station while the truck take the full one to the landfill and go round and round. The second one is the stationary container system with this latest compactor trucks. So, but this is only on the transfer station with this specific container, this green container. So it can be hooked by the grapple here and placed on the compactor trucks. Now, this is the case of Japan. So majority of the waste transportation in Japan is conducted by stationary container system. Well, there are multiple types of trucks used in this case. The majority, from what I've seen, from what I've know, is the compactor trucks. It's not only for the burnable, it used also for the recyclables. Like this is, I guess this is the, because it's Friday, is the, I took this picture this morning, actually. This is the PET bottles. So not only the burnables, but also the other types of wastes. Sometimes the bulky waste also, because they have some kind of crusher inside. So for the crushable bulky waste, they're using these types. And for the dump trucks, this is quite interesting because it reminds me of Indonesia. They actually put some boards at the side of the trucks to add the heights of the capacity of the trucks. They're taking the cardboards here for recyclables. Sometimes the bulky waste is also taken by this type of trucks. And especially for the university, for the bulky waste in the university, I saw they use these types of crane trucks to take the bulky waste, to put it on inside, to put it in the truck here. So basically, this is the overall waste transportation in Japan, the general idea. As we mentioned previously, we have the burnable wastes, the non-burnable wastes, and the burnable wastes. They are taken by these compactor trucks into the incineration or to the landfill directly for the non-burnable. And inside the incinerations, they have this grapple hook here to open the the plastic bags and to mix the wastes inside this pit. And for the bottom ash and the fly ash is sent to the landfill there. And also for the bulky wastes or bulky refuse is going to be shredded. And for the large particles, they are sent to the incineration. The small particles are basically landfill. And for the valuable items, they are going to be separated by the magnetic separation, for example. For like irons, they are going to be recycled. And for the recyclables here, the plastic container, plastic packaging, bottle cans, and PET bottles, and also the miscellaneous paper, they are taken to be sorted further with hand sorting system with the belt conveyor, like how it's in the Super Depot in Sutarjo. And then they will be recycled and baled, and then they will be recycled. For branch and leaves and food wastes from business waste, for example, they are going directly to the composting sites or to be used as feed for the cattle, for example. I guess that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Afif. So now we will move to the discussion session. If you have any question or you want to discuss the topic with the speaker, you can write the question in the chat box, or you can use the raise hand feature. So I can call your name and you can ask directly to the speakers. So is there any of you? Mr. Waliuddin Zuhdi, you can ask directly to the speakers.
Okay, so let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Waliuddin Zuhdi. I am from ITS, majoring environmental engineer, and I'll have a question to Mas Afif. So I read on the news stated that Indonesia is placed as the world's second largest marine polluter behind China, and moreover, many of coral reefs and also fishes, turtles get injured because of our plastic pollution on the ocean. But at first, I personally never really interested to talk about it. But since I heard from the news that minister is saying over blue economy, that also emphasis on securing its ocean resources, I feel like it won't be achieved if our waste kept coming to the ocean years by years. So my question is how the professional sees this problem, and also how do we cope with this problem as the environmental engineer? And we all know that we also know that Japan and water cannot be separated, and also Indonesia is. So that is my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Afif, you can answer the question.
Thank you for the wonderful question. It's, I guess it's a major issue in the world, and it brings the name of Indonesia. And I read somewhere that we have the most polluted river in the world, in Indonesia. And I guess it's not only about the solid waste, but also about the chemical or industrial pollution. So you're asking about what can we do? So basically, it depends on how you put it into perspective. If it's actually there are a lot of actions happening here and there about, for example, I guess, I don't know if it's still happening or not, but we used to have, when I was studying in ITS, we used to have some programs, for example, Susur Sungai or something, to promote the clean river, or we have some actions. The idea is not to clean the river, not to take the waste from the river at this event, but the idea is to bring consciousness to the people around, especially the people who are living or passing through the river, because most of the waste are coming from those who live around the river, and it will lead directly to the bigger water body, which is the sea. So yes, those actions will actually make some sense at sometimes, but it needs times. It needs the participation from individuals as well. For example, if you cannot, I mean, you have to make action from individually, from your own part, and from this small part to a bigger part, to a bigger scale. Your surroundings, your families, your friends, your school friends, for example. I guess that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Afif. So there is a question in the chat room from Afisina Putra. Do you want to ask directly to the speaker? Afisina Putra from PT Nusa. Or I will read the question. So the question maybe it's for Dr. Kumara and for Mr. Afif. So Afisina Putra want to ask about the handling in COVID waste in Japan or outside Indonesia. Is there any special treatment in the process? Maybe the segregation or the pooling in the source. So Dr. Kumara or Mr. Afif, you can answer the question. Thank you.
Please, Dr. Kumara.
I'm sorry, Dr. Kumara is still in mute.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me share some thoughts in both the Japanese perspective and in other developing countries' perspectives, because we have done some research in the after this COVID. So in Myanmar, how they handle the COVID waste, because the issue is even before the COVID situation. So medical waste management in the most developing countries is not in a acceptable standard, because their infrastructure and their management system is still not well stabilized. So we found in especially in our study in Myanmar, so even before COVID-19, they don't have like regulations, they don't have infrastructure to handle medical waste, even though they follow WHO regulations on how to handle the healthcare or medical waste. Then suddenly COVID came, and the per capita medical waste volume has double, triple within a month or two. They don't know how to handle this waste. So that's I found one of the main issues in especially in developing countries. But then I come to Japan, so they already had a very good system stabilized before the COVID, how to handle the medical waste. So all the medical waste they collected from the hospital is go to the incinerator. So they have incinerated in well managed systems. So the medical waste collected by the specialized private waste collection companies, and they are monitored them in properly using the monitoring system. So they had that system already. So then we found that after the COVID-19, what they did is actually some education to the not much on the hospitals, but the household, because there were two type of COVID patients. We found some are quarantined at the household level and some are in the hospital. So if they are in the hospital, it is something easy for like a Japanese system, because the hospitals already have very good management system. But the patient in the household, so then sometimes they don't know who are the patients. So in that sense, after COVID, so Japanese, the Ministry of Environment, Japan, has issued some new with not regulations, like education materials. So how household waste should be separated, and then that waste, if the families who have a patient on the COVID-19, so that kind of a house, how they should put their waste outside of the collection, so put in 2 bags, and that kind of a education program. But then it's come to that, because after that it's collect properly by the same collection vehicles, but go to the incinerator, so not go to the recycling facilities. So but in the developing country Myanmar, what we look at, so then they have problem in the both the hospitals and also the household, how to manage waste. So normally the what they had started, so not like before the COVID, most of their waste go to the dump site because of lack of small incinerators. So after that, so they started putting some kind of open areas and the closed dump sites. So they put the COVID waste and put them into the dig holes, and then they started constructing few small incinerators, but it takes some time because of this budget and the time to develop. We feel a totally difficult situation in Myanmar, because they're not prepared well before the situation. So I think what I learned from this COVID one is waste management also should be considered some what we call disaster or resilience plan. So normally what we look at waste, looking at as after the disasters, we said disaster waste, but that the situation give us to understand better. We understand waste management as a service should be interlinked with the city resilience or the disaster management plan. So that's something, this kind of sudden situations how the city's waste management systems can be happen. So manage should be have some kind of it's not only for the medical waste. I think it's happened for the municipal waste, and also the recycling activities by the informal sector. So they are in vulnerable situations after the COVID situation. So I think, yes, that's something different from the developed Japanese and the developing countries when I look at it that way. I don't know, Dr. Want to add anything from Hokkaido?
Thank you, Dr. Kumara. So how about Mr. Afif? Is there any special treatment of COVID waste in the Sapporo or near your residence?
Yeah, thank you very much. As far as I know, there are no specific regulation about the waste handling of the coronavirus waste handling. But I only know that from your household, from like household waste of especially the masks, whether it's a used one or unused one, and including the tissue used for example, runny nose. It should be placed in one plastic bag before discard inside the designated plastic bag. For example, in a normal in any plastic bag, and then put inside the yellow bag. For example, in Sapporo, like that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer. So is there any question from our participants? Yeah, so is there any question?
Ibu Deki, can I ask one question to Kumara Sensei, because it's very interesting. I'm sorry, Kumara Sensei. So maybe next week we will also meet. But it's a very interesting to know, because you mentioned about the SDGs part for the waste management. So I think it's very interesting to know, because we talk about the interlinkage of the many goals for the SDGs, as mentioned by Kumara Sensei. So for the waste management, based on your experience in several of the city, for the SDGs itself, which is the most important for reach the goal for the SDGs? Which one that the activity? Because you are mentioned about the 4 lessons from every of the country that is already worked together with some local partners. So which one that is most important for reach the goals of the SDGs, and also the interlinkage, because it will have some interlinkage for one SDGs to another SDGs goals. I think this one for me, and for Mas Afif, because maybe some of the students also know in here about throw as much as you pay. Maybe you can mention about this to the audience, because in Indonesia our retribution is still very low right now. And then how about the implementation of the throw as much as you pay? Because for me, I need to bring my waste to school and throw in the school to avoid at that time. Okay, but right now I think it's a very difficult to conduct like this one. So this is my question. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Bu Warma. Please, Dr. Kumara, to answer the first question from Bu Warma.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Varma. So that question. So I think it's depend on what subject you want to do, because which targets is depend on your main objective of your work. Because as we like we have some direct targets, like let's say like a 12.4 is food waste, half of the food waste reduction. So our research or our project activities focus on the organic waste or food waste focus. So that's going to be the main, our direct target SDG. So then what we're trying to do is from that one to look at interlinkage. Okay, if we put reduce food waste, so we involve the communities to separate waste and bring to the food waste. So then we give some payment to the citizens. So then we look at how it's impact to the poverty, or then we look at, okay, if they not put the food waste to our composting facilities, it's go to the landfill, it's make greenhouse gases. So then we try to link it with the climate indicators, or we link it with the farming and agricultural activities, and that kind of interlinkage we can look at. Actually, currently, we are interested to see how the waste bank can look at with this SDG interlinkage. So that's our new research work. We would like to work with ITCS to understand, because currently we review waste bank in Indonesia. We found mostly you look at waste bank as a waste management perspective, how much waste reduction or how much can be recycled in perspectives, but at the same time it can create the social impact and also the environmental impact in addition to the waste reduction. So we're going to look at how waste bank with this direct impact to the waste reduction based on the JAXRADA, and look at the other impacts. So how it's impact to the gender, how it's impact to the partnership, how it's impact to the poverty reduction, how it's impact to the other important indicators. So we are very much interested to do this research work with you, and then look at these indicators. I think next couple of months we can have one session and this subject is West Bank SDG and its interlinkages. So we are happy to do that.
Thank you, Kumara Sensei. Thank you.
Thank you, Kumara, Dr. Kumara. So for the second question, please, Mr. Afif, to answer that.
Yes, thank you very much for the question, Ibu Warma. Actually, it also happens in Hokkaido University. Some of the students take their waste from home with any bags of plastic bags, and they discard it at the school. So in order to avoid the pay as you throw. So it's not so much different of what you experienced before. But I'm sorry for not explaining more about the pay as you throw systems. So these systems is actually the most equal or fair system, because as literally as it can be, you have to pay as much as you throw. So the more you discard, the more you have to pay. And if you look in the bigger picture, it can lead to environmental sustainability, because the more people are not willing to pay, therefore they are going to reduce their generations of waste, and at this point they will recycle, or no, not recycle, they will recover more of the recyclables, or at least separate their wastes, and it can lead to the recovery of the recyclables, and therefore in very bigger picture it will decrease the generations of GHG emission. And also for the sustainability of the economy, it can build up the economy of the system itself, and also the equity, the balance of the fairness of the system. So probably in Indonesia right now, they decide the collection fee based on for example, the sub-district area or the neighborhood area, and you just have to pay this amount for the whole month, and it doesn't matter how much you pay, how much you throw your waste. And or maybe in some other parts of the world, they use the tax to pay the trash they discard. But with this system, with this pay-as-you-throw system, it will build the equity of the whole resident, because for those who generate more waste, well, of course, they have to pay more. And for those who generate less waste, they will only need to pay less than what it's supposed to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And how much you pay for this one? For one I don't know, for 1 kilo or for follow, based on follow?
So in Sapporo, it's actually not that expensive if we talk about the price. So based on the price of the plastic bags, the designated plastic bags, it can only like for each liters of waste generated, you have to pay 2 yen, or equal to 300 Indonesian rupiah for each liters of waste. Actually, it's not that expensive if we talk about in terms of economics here, but still you have to pay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Afif. So in the chat room, there is one question from Miss Felicitas. Maybe you want to ask directly to Dr. Kumara or Mr. Afif? Miss Felicitas? So the question is about incinerator. From your opinion, Dr. Kumara and Mr. Afif, Ms. Felicitas want to ask, how do we convince the society and NGO to use incinerator as one of our action regarding implementation of waste to energy? Because in our society, we still facing a bad presumption of incinerator in Indonesia. So please, maybe Dr. Kumara first to answer this question.
Thank you. I think this is quite interesting question. So, so I am very much interested in this, because I think it's based on the society where we are in, because and how you look at this issue. Because I'm in Japan, so we don't have much issue with incinerator, because we live in very close to the incinerator, and especially in Tokyo. So you are that there were 20 around 20 incinerated within 23 wards. So so everybody living very close to incinerator. But I feel this is because the peoples believe that the incinerator not making any harm. Their technology is standard, and they monitoring properly the system. So if this kind of like people have a belief to the system of the management, so they feel no problem. But in our developing countries, mostly we are not believe the system, because the systems are not functions well always. So even though they said the incinerator not damage to the environment, but people cannot believe, because that cannot be true or not. So then the system is not made to that level. In that sense, people always feel, but that's something people's perspectives. But at the same time, I'm looking at how you look at the incinerator in your overall waste management is something very interesting. In that sense, I'm very much interested in the situation Surabaya, with your new incinerator have already stabilized. So, and because for my understanding, when I work this waste management, I'm always looking Surabaya as one of the case studies and see how the Surabaya has managing waste. I found in the early stage, how you design this community or the decentralized systems, and then after 2015 or something, you have more centralized systems, and then you are more promoting the incinerator type of technology. So this incinerator bringing to the overall waste management system, how it's effect to the 3R at the community level. Is it supportive, the 3R activities, or is it damage the 3R activities? So I think that's quite, for me, I'm as a researcher very much interested to see how the next changes happening in Surabaya after this incinerator, because we feel incinerator, what we learned from the technology wise, incinerator to make it more technology functions. So there are some capacities, like it should be more than 100 tons of waste should be treated 24 hours, need to be operated. So all this when happens, so then they can function properly, the incinerator. But even in the for that, so you need to have waste always burning in the center. So whether your waste reduction strategies are supportive or I think that kind of things also should be considered when making the incinerator. But now the quality wise, I think technology wise, Japan and other European countries have already proven that it is a good technology wise, it can be happen. But still there were some air pollution standard parameters need to be considered, so and properly monitored, so then the people can at least believe it's working in that manner. But one thing I found for Indonesia, maybe looking at Philippines, because Philippines also early had a very strict regulation that they not promote the incinerator. But I think in the last two, 3 years, so they had gradually changing their waste management regulations, and recently I think they released that strict control of incinerator, and they now allowed some kind of incinerator promotion, but with some standard of air quality control. I think this air quality control is very important, and for that they need capacity. Your city staff need to know how to monitor these air quality controls and how it's report to the people back. How quality is, that is important. Maybe Afif can add anything if I.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kumara. So how about Mr. Afif? Or do you have any experience to convince the society about incinerator?
I guess Dr. Kumara already mentioned the details about what is required. And yes, the resident and the NGOs, the society and the NGOs, they need to be convinced that this system is safe. So we really need to make sure to assess the air pollution, like in specifically the air pollution, and what is the benefit of having this system instead of just landfilling, for example. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So maybe we still have time for the last question. Maybe still any other question from the participants to Dr. Kumara or to Mr. Afif. I will give a chance to one last question. In the chat room, I think there are 2 questions. So the first question from Virgasena. Do you want to ask directly to the speakers? Mr. Virgasena? I will.
If you may, I can ask directly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the thank you thank you for the great lecture. Please allow me to ask my curiosity. As from developed country have been treat solid waste thoroughly, exceptionally done. We Indonesians still see numerous solid waste have not been segregated, and also the open dumping system still the end pipe of solid waste management. As from your both experience, what is exactly the country applied to the community done so it is well treated? What the concrete solution from each developed country to treat solid waste management very well? Thank you.
Please, Dr. Kumara and Mr. Afif to answer the question from Mr. Virgasena. Maybe Dr. Kumara first or Mr. Afif?
Yes, thank you. This is, as I mentioned, I think Afif also mentioned how Japan has stabilized the system. So it is, I feel it's a process. You cannot do 1 day or 2 days. That's what we learned from most of our cities, from our case studies also. When I shared, like we did four case studies to understand how they introduced these 3R programs. So in their cities, it's take long time. So sometimes to stabilize these systems. But what we see, like it's depend on the cities, their local conditions, local capacities. So it's need to be partnerships. So city cannot do by themselves. So they need to work with other partners, and they need to plan what they want to do and where they want to go based on their resources. And then they need to take actions. For them also we found going to take actions. So definitely these political people are very important when you have a strong leaders who can take actions. All these policies to implement, we need to take action, allocate budget. So all these are politics in the city government. So if you have these kind of a people, so then we found like something started to change, though then the people are looking at these changes. People also is starting to change some of their way of handling these waste, and they started believing their city governments, and then they want to do these things. Because we found in some cases also, even though they nicely design waste separation programs and they collect waste and then they bring together and dump in the landfill site, because they don't have system how to recycle. But they introduce waste separation, they ask people to separate, and they collect and they go to the landfill site. So then people cannot believe these systems are working or not. So then next time people not help to waste separation. So I feel it is not one factor, it is something different things should be happen. But I always believe in, like we can start as a model or pilot projects in one community or two communities, and doing experimental research work with them, and adapting these new systems, and then we need to expand the experience to the whole city. So that's what we learn from the case studies. So there is no like a sudden like a 1 day or 2 days answers to this one. But one thing it is very important, I feel, the waste management, the recently not, it's a huge problem in the environmental wise, but when it's come to the public service, it's also allocate a lot of budget within the city governments, but it is not much when compared to other services. So it should be part of an important public service, so where the governments need to make more attention for the waste management.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kumara. So, Mr. Afif, do you have any additional opinion or answer?
Yes, thank you very much. I only have a short additional. So from my opinion, I guess the education is a big part in this. And it's not only about the education, but the mentoring, for example. So you cannot just talk, but you need to help them build to make the system sustainable first. And then, as Dr. Kumara mentioned, so we need a model for this. We need examples because we have to make them realize that this is necessary. This is necessary enough to be, or this is worth the effort to be conducted. And I guess if it's Indonesia, instead of punishment, so there are two ways of approaching the punishment or incentive. So I guess because Indonesians are creative enough, I guess punishment it's not that effective. So incentive should be more concern to put into concern instead of the punishment. So if they know what are the incentives of doing this, and I guess I can safely say that it's going to work somehow. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your discussion. So there is a last question for this guest lecture from Ms. Chantika in the chat room. I will read it. This question maybe for Dr. Kumara. She wants to ask about the plastic waste. So Ms. Chantika have heard the news that the use of plastic bag in Jakarta decreased to 82%. And she want to ask about this regulation. Is it possible to use the same regulation that Jakarta did apply to all city in Indonesia? So please, Dr. Kumara, to answer this question.
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. But before that, I want to one thing to mention that the early question, like Indonesia is the second polluter. Someone said like a second polluter, but this is also, I don't know how you feel as an Indonesian national taking these results, because I'm a Sri Lankan. In the same report said Sri Lanka is in the 5th place. So we were so shocked, and actually we try to some researchers in Sri Lanka, we try to find some data, and we try to evaluate that jump back report and like a paper. We found their calculation is something different what the Sri Lanka data at the national level. So but I want to tell that it is very difficult to compare if you don't have data in the same methodology and the same manner. So because they said Sri Lanka have a 5 kilogram per person waste generation. So that is too much for Sri Lanka. When it is too much is in like a US, it's still US not generate 5 kilogram per capita. So they took Sri Lanka as a 5 kilogram. I don't know it is a mistake or not, but we found our national data, it's like a 0.48 per capita waste generation. So I don't know, in Sri Lanka, we are not much concerned that you consider that we are in the 5th place. It's for the comparison. I think that's what we discussed these days. It is important to have a common methodology and a common data system. So then easy to compare, especially in Asian context, because ASEAN already developed ASEAN framework for plastic marine litter action plan. So it's asking monitoring. So then I think we need some kind of a common data and the common methodologies to do that. So that's something I think as a researchers, we need some kind of that kind of a discussion, how to create these kind of a common methodologies or the common data. Otherwise, I think the comparison is not good in such a situation. But when it comes to this, the single-use plastic in Jakarta, I'm not sure what kind of legislation they did there. But I think that's one thing I believe, like cities can learn each other. So that is something very, very important. So looking others what doing and getting them and fit into your own situation is, I think, is one way you can learn. So how Jakarta did, so then you can think about how to do that in your situation. But for me in personal, so the banning single-use plastic. So single-use plastic is one of the main issues for the waste because it's very unvalued and very difficult to recycle, because it is the waste that have more issues in the plastic one. So then we can have either how to do that. So most cities are taking something banning or regulating to stop or reducing single-use plastic. I think it is very important and easy to the cities can learn each other and see how to do that. But again, it's coming after COVID. So how this with the COVID, the single-use plastic use again increased because of this packaging and things. So how to manage this is very important. Yes, but learning from city, if Jakarta doing something, so maybe Surabaya can do learning. I know Surabaya's work is mostly when I go to other Asian countries, people are discussing Surabaya because they're learning from Surabaya how you did in waste management. So learning is, I think, it's a city from other cities is good way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumara. Mr. Afif, do you have any other opinion or additional? Okay, so we have finally reached the end of this session. I would like to address a great appreciation to our guest speaker, Dr. Kumara and Mr. Afif, that have kindly shared their knowledge with us. And also I would like to say thank you to all of the participants. I hope everyone can enjoy the insightful lecture. Have a great day, stay safe and healthy. So I would like to hand back to Puawa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mbak Deki. And again, thank you very much, Kumara Sensei, and also Mas Afif. So thank you for a very nice and a very interesting lecture. So many students asking and also others participants asking for the materials that delivers today. And before we are closing our activity today, so we really hope that we can take a pictures together. Then maybe all of you can turn on the your video, because we are right now in this condition, so we need to have some pictures to see that we work together. So please, Ibu Rusdiana, Mas Niam, and others. Okay. Ibu Anjas Amara. Yes, thank you, Mas Niam. Any others that Mbak Rahma, you can take a pictures for us. Okay. Already? Mbak Valen and Mbak Rahma, we can take a pictures together.
Okay, I will start taking a picture. The first slide. Keep turn on your video. Second slide. And then the third slide. You can change your style maybe. Fourth slide. And the last one. Okay, then thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you, Mbak Rahma. So, okay, thank you very much, Kumara Sensei and Mas Afif and all of the participants. We already reached in the end of our season for this international guest lecture. So maybe later on we will have another guest lectures again, and then also invite Kumara Sensei and others from Hokkaido University and also from others university in Japan, because Kumara Sensei already mentioned that we will have some work together about interlinkage of the SDGs. Maybe this is also the new for us here in Surabaya and in Indonesia, especially in ITS for all of the students. learn about how to interlinkage of the SDGs, because mostly people will be talk about the SDGs in the future. And also, again, because in Indonesia right now, our position is only in a position of 68, I think, in Asia. So less than Thailand, less than Philippines. So I think this will be very wonderful if we can learn about the interlinkage for the SDGs. And for Mas Afif, thank you very much for coming. And Mas Afif is our alumni, Kumara Sensei, and later on maybe if it's possible to work in IJS also or back to Indonesia. And also can be graduate soon from the Hokkaido University, and again that share the knowledge for all of us in Indonesia and around the world. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. And before that, I would like to have one of the slides that can be shown to Kumara Sensei and Mas Afif. Could you see it?
Ooh. I miss. I miss.
You miss the time in Surabaya, and Mas Afif also, because still stay in Japan right now, because our condition is like this one. So please, if you are come to Indonesia again, especially to Surabaya, will be join with us and then maybe have some activity in here. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mas Afif. Thank you, Dr. Kumara.
Thank you, Bapak, Ibu.
Terima kasih, Bapak dan Ibu. Thank you.
Terima kasih semua.
Terima kasih. Ada Buya.
Dari mereka yang berpotensi.
Nggak bisa. Ya, Mas Meli. Dr. Isra, thank you for coming, Dr. Isra.
Hello? Yes.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for your invitation. I saw the invitation in Facebook and asked Dr. Bibi about this and attend.
Yeah.
With my friend, Prof. Asia from Basra also.
Yeah. Maybe later on also can work with you together. Dr.
Inshallah.
Isra. Yeah. Thank you for coming.
I wish. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Terima kasih semuanya. Thank you. Okay. So we can end our meeting. Mbak Dewi, makasih rawuhnya. Mbak Dewi nggak dengar nih. Terima kasih. Thank you.
Makasih Ibu Wawa, makasih
Ya,
Bu
kita
Dia.
end ya semuanya.
Makasih Mbak Roma, Mbak Deki, semua, Mbak Sasa.